There are many motorcycles I have ridden and truly enjoyed, so many so that I would go to say that I love them. However, there's another nexus point with these motorcycles is that I would never actually own them. There are plenty of motorcycles that I've ridden that I've absolutely been over the moon with, but I just can't see myself actually owning. And in today's video, I thought it'd be fun to take a trip down memory lane, talk about some of those favorite bikes that I would actually never own. Let's start with the KTM RC8R. This is a bike I rode back in 2019 at Road Atlanta on track. A subscriber of the channel invited me out there. He had a bunch of his bikes and we got to test them out. And the RC8R was just this analog V-twin monster motorcycle that I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed.
This bike is fantastic. God, it flicks in so quick. It's got so much torque.
That original video is still up on YouTube. You can go and check it out, but suffice it to say that motorcycle just simply blew me away. It was dorky, it was analog, it was awesome, and I just really loved how tactile and enjoyable it was to ride on track. However, when push comes to shove, there's really no reason for me to own that machine. The reason being, it's a bit of a handful, and honestly, I don't want to deal with KTM's reliability on those older RC8R machines. While that V-twin had a bunch of character and charm, I could see it being a bit of a headache to own and ride. Beyond that, if I were to get some superlative 1000+cc machine for the track, it would probably be a Ducati V4R. Now, yes, it's a whole lot more expensive than the KTM RC8R, but it comes with a whole host of electronic rider aids. It's just a little bit easier to ride, and it was the bike that I went fastest on at my local track at Eagles Canyon Raceway for a production machine. So for those reasons, the RC8R, while it's an amazing motorcycle, is something I would never personally own. The next bike I adored, but I just really can't make heads or tails of to actually put in my garage, would be the Triumph Rocket 3. I've talked about this bike before, but I just love this machine so much. It has just an absolutely outrageous 2.5 liter 3-cylinder engine, making 165 horsepower and 165 foot-pounds of torque. Those are higher power figures than my first car that I owned back in high school. Yes, I owned a Mazda 3 in high school that I think made like 130 horsepower and definitely less than 165 foot-pounds of torque. So to put that into a big muscle cruiser motorcycle is just bonkers. It's burly, it's unique, and there's really nothing quite like riding a Triumph Rocket 3. Every time I've ridden one, which has been exactly 2 times, once here in Austin and once in Tucson, Arizona, they've always been an amazing ride. With an enormous fat rear tire, decent amount of clearance, a sporty version, and a bit of a more laid-back cruiser version, the Rocket 3 has something for everyone in my opinion. But we come back to the fact that it's a massive motorcycle. This bike is just insanely heavy, clocking in at over 800 pounds if memory serves me correctly. And quite honestly, I ride motorcycles because they're fun, lightweight, and peppy, and something that heavy is just a little difficult to justify. The Rocket 3 is also an extremely bespoke machine. You guys are gonna see this theme in today's video that I just can't really justify buying a motorcycle that is so bespoke and specific. Not to say that I would put a Rocket 3 up on a bike lift and work on it myself, but the fact that I can't really do that with the bike lets me be a little bit more cautious about actually owning it. All the bikes that I personally own are a little bit more easy to maintain and operate, and even though they might have their quirks like this Ducati Scrambler or my Daytona 675R, once you come to understand them, they're just like any other motorcycle. The Rocket 3 with its longitudinally mounted 3-cylinder, single-sided swing arm, 800-pound curb weight, as much as I loved it and as rowdy and as raucous as it is, I just can't really make the case to actually buy it myself. This next bike really left an impression on me, and I would venture to say I really loved it. It was the Ducati Hypermotard 1100. Now, this is the old air-cooled Hypermotard pre-2013. This thing was an absolute animal. This motorcycle's power figures doesn't really lend itself for you to understand how insane it actually is. It's super lightweight, and that old 2-valve Ducati air-cooled L-twin just punches so insanely hard off of every gear. You could clutch this thing up with wheelies in 4th gear if you wanted to. I rented this bike in 2020 to do a bunch of videos with on the channel, and I was blown away by how much I loved it.
What a ripper of a bike, man. Holy crap.
It really felt like my desert sled, but just a little bit more beefy beefy, way more raw and animalistic, and just ultimate hooligan energy. Now, all that to say, as much as I love the bike, I wouldn't own it because it was just a little too rowdy. I know that sounds pretty crazy coming from a guy who's owned a Turbo Hayabusa, but the Hypermotard 1100 with the air-cooled motor was just a little bit too much all the time. It had a cable-actuated throttle, was insanely raw. It was a real man's man bike. But man, when I rented and rode that bike, it really got me thinking that it would be a ton of fun to own that machine. I actually thought about maybe picking one up, but the other thing that holds me back from this bike is the fact that it's just a little bit old nowadays. And as much as I love taking care of my own personal senior citizen motorcycles, which they've become senior citizens because of how I ride them, I don't really want to buy a 15-year-old motorcycle and lovingly take care of it and all that stuff. I just don't really have the bandwidth for that now. So for those reasons, the Hypermotard 1100 finds its way on my do not buy list as much as I loved riding it. The next one's a quirky one that I almost bought because I could make the space for it here in my personal garage. It's the Honda Motocompo, the 1980s tiny folding scooter motorcycle thing. The Motocompo is such an interesting little thing, and the fact that you can stow it away in the corner of your garage definitely makes you wonder if you could actually own this thing and not really have much of an impact in terms of space, financial constraints, or even maintenance. It's pretty simple, although a bit quirky to work on. It folds away. You can even put it in the back of a Civic, as Honda famously campaigned them together back in the 80s. So I love the Motocompo. I love the concept. I think the little thing is adorable. I did a whole review on it here on the channel. Really enjoyed my time with it. However, when I actually rode it, I realized that it doesn't really have a lot of practical use.
Look at this. Look at this. Why do you take so damn long to get going? Fred Flintstoning my way up the hill. Nothing.
Unless you live in an extremely dense urban environment where you're never gonna go above even 15 miles an hour, an electric scooter is probably gonna do way more for you than a Motocompo. Owning a Motocompo is very much another one of those senior citizen caring for the elderly sorts of motorcycles. There's nothing wrong with that, but at this stage of my life, I'm just not quite ready to take on a shelter dog, if you know what I mean. So as fun as it is to unfold the Motocompo, get all the little bars in place and everything, as much fun as I had kind of ogling it and looking at it, when it actually came to riding the thing, it wasn't as fun as I thought it would be. It had basically no suspension travel, and for the roads that I have around here in Austin, Texas, it virtually makes zero sense. This thing is either a super dense urban vehicle or just a neighborhood bop around oddity that you have in your garage. And I don't really need a toy like that at this stage in my life, so I had to shelf the Motocompo as much as I love it. All right, the next one I very much almost wanted to keep. It was a loaner bike I got from Eurocycle, and it was everything I wanted a sport bike to be. It was, of course, the MV Agusta F3 800 RC. Ooh, what a spicy meatball. What an amazing motorcycle. The master cylinder fuel was impeccable. The quick shifter up and down worked perfectly. A 779cc triple cylinder making 150 horsepower. It was just sublime. To me, one of the best sport bikes ever built. I had the very fortunate opportunity to take it on track. I spinned a couple laps with it. I compared it to a Triumph Daytona 765 Moto 2 edition and found that ultimately the MV Agusta was closer to the ultimate 3-cylinder sport bike that I've been looking for my whole life. So why didn't I pick it up? Well, it's an MV Agusta. I have no clue how to work on one of those things, and I'm pretty sure the reliability is about as good as a 1960s Fiat. And although it was just so amazing, the fundamentals of that bike are just absolutely unreal. I would ultimately delegate it to a track bike. And if I'm gonna delegate an MV Agusta as a track bike, well, that's a whole level of sadomasochism that I just haven't attained yet. As a European motorcycle track day guy with my Daytona, that bike is plenty good enough. It does the triple cylinder thing and it revs out just like the MV Agusta. The extra top end power of the MV is nice and the extra torque out of corners is nice, but ultimately I just couldn't make the case for it because of just how many gremlins and weirdness I know that I'd encounter having an MV Agusta as a track bike. So for that reason, I couldn't hit go on it, although it came very close for me and I absolutely love that bike. This next one might hit you as a bit of a surprise, but the Ural was a ton of fun, and I really, really loved it. So if you guys don't know, the Ural is a Russian manufacturer. They only make the Ural as far as I know. They may have made other motorcycles, but the only one I've ever ridden was the original sidecar combo motorcycle. We rented one of these for the day off of Twisted Road a few years back. Me and Spite went around and rode all over Austin with it. And it is such an interesting motorcycle, just because of the sidecar combination. You get more looks and thumbs ups on that thing that you'd ever get on any Ducati or BMW you could ever buy. So I really loved my time with it. I thought it was a really useful thing, a really cool thing, but many things put it on the back burner for me in terms of actually owning it. The first is, it's a bit of a novelty, right? Like, you have one of these things as kind of a fun toy, and it takes up a lot of space for a fun toy. The thing is big. It's as wide as a car. It's about as long as a car, so you pretty much need an entire car space devoted to just the Ural. In theory, you could pop off the side passenger kind of wheel and put it off to the side and just ride the Ural, but then at that point, you just have a really ancient, air-cooled, weird motorcycle that you're using instead of the actual three-wheeled contraption that a Ural is supposed to be. So for as quirky as it is, for as many looks as you would get having the Ural, it would be a hard pass for me to actually own one of these things as much as I loved riding it.
I know a vast majority of you watching this channel don't own your own bike yet, and that's okay. Soak up the knowledge and enjoy yourself while you're here, my sweet squid in training. But did you know I give away motorcycles here on this channel? I've actually given away over 50 bikes valued at over $500,000 in the last 5 years. All you need to do to get entered is go to yammynoob.co, pick out a hat, a hoodie, a t-shirt, a key tag, whatever you want, and every dollar you spend will be an entry to win, subject to a cool multiplier. It's the easiest, no commitment way to get entered to win. But if you want the best chance to win, you should become a member. Not only will you get automatic entries to win, but you'll also get access to our exclusive Discord server, spicy NSFW Yammy Noob content, and more. So head over to the website, get entered to win, and check it out.
Okay, this next one, I came super close to pulling the trigger. Super close. I really loved this motorcycle, but I just couldn't quite get there, and I wouldn't own it. It was the Triumph Thruxton RS. So this bike really tugged at my heartstrings because it just looks so freaking sweet. If you guys have seen the old Thruxton RS, it's got the Olin suspension, the spoked wheels, the stickier tires. It is truly the new age cafe racer that everybody gawks at and looks over. It's a really cool bike. I found it to be equally as capable on street as a 600 class sport bike, and yet with all that ample usable power from the 1200cc Bonneville engine, it's just sublime. I really enjoyed my time with that motorcycle. I remember making a dedicated review on it and just absolutely gushing over it and fawning over it. I thought it was such a cool bike. However, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me. It's not quite good enough as a sport bike for you to go and take it on track days. You can certainly do a track day with it, but it's not quite there. And it's not quite comfortable enough to be an everyday bop around bike. So it kind of splits the difference between the two bikes that I own, but in a negative direction for both of them. So instead of doing anything better than both of the bikes I have, it kind of just does both things worse. So it didn't really make a whole lot of sense, but sometimes the heart wants what it wants, and I just ended up falling in love with that bike. And you guys know I'm a big fan of the 1200cc platform and the Bonnevilles. I love the 1200 Scrambler XE, so don't rule out me getting one of those one day. All right, another one that I freaking loved but makes no sense and is similar to the Rocket 3 is the Yamaha VMAX, the latest generation, the 200 horsepower, like full zoot one from I think 2010 was the one that I rode. We did a whole retrospective comparison between an old VMAX and a new VMAX. That video was awesome. You guys should definitely go and check that out if you haven't seen it. But the Yamaha VMAX, oh my God, what a bike. 1700cc V4, 200 horsepower. There's nothing like a VMAX. You have this big burly cruiser, but it revs out to like 11,000 RPM. It's like nothing you've ever ridden. The thing just hauls the mail.
There we go.
And all that power is really intoxicating, and there's definitely this itch that I feel that I need to scratch between owning things like the Turbo Hayabusa, the H2. There is definitely space in my stable for a big power motorcycle, but the VMAX isn't quite the right fit for me. The reason I wouldn't own a VMAX is because, again, it's just really heavy for what it is. In cruiser terms, it's not that bad, but for me, it's still a very heavy motorcycle. Also, I think the VMAX is just incredibly complicated to try to work on. That Yamaha V4 is very unique, and it's only unique to the VMAX, and so finding parts and doing work on that bike is not really something that I would want to do. If I were to get another big power motorcycle, it would no doubt be a ZH2. I've talked to you guys about that so many times here on the channel. I think it'd be a ton of fun to have a ZH2 again here, but we will see the way the winds blow. But the VMAX, not quite right for my ultimate yeet machine in the garage. And last on today's video is the KTM RC8C, my absolute all-time favorite track motorcycle I have ever ridden.
Oh! Oh my God!
Wow, what an amazing bike. It truly feels like a race bike. I've never ridden anything that feels like a KTM RC8C, and I think it's testament to the fact of how good that motorcycle is, that within 5 laps of me going around ECR, my local track, I was already hitting my personal best times that I did with the V4R. I think if I'd had a full day with that machine, I could have gone under 2 minutes at ECR, which is a really fast lap time. That's like expert level club racer times. I really think I could have gotten there with that bike because it just felt so confident, so comfortable, and so amazing. You can dial every little thing in on that motorcycle, and it really is so special. And if it's so special and so much better than any other track bike I've ever owned, why wouldn't I buy it? Well, the simple fact is that it costs $40,000 brand new to go and buy if you can find one. The other issue to me is that it's just way too bespoke and unique. If you're gonna own a track bike, in my opinion, you need something that has decent parts availability because you're gonna break stuff, you're gonna need stuff, you're gonna swap stuff out. An RC8C, although being basically perfect, if you ever need new parts for it, you have to go straight to the dealership in KTM, and that's just gonna be super expensive. Now, I'm not saying that's broke boy problems, because I think anybody would look at a $40,000 track day motorcycle toy and think, yeah, that's a bit spicy for what you're actually trying to do with the machine. What I like to do on track is to meaningfully improve and get better at riding and to enjoy myself. And I think with the RC8C, there'd always be that little thing in the back of my mind saying, hey, it's $40,000, make sure you don't crash it. So for me, that's why it never found its way into my stable. Although I could definitely afford a motorcycle like that, it's a bit silly to do it. So guys, those are some of my favorite motorcycles that I've loved over the years, but I've just not brought myself to actually own. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And thank you so much for checking out today's video. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Folks, you made it to the end of this video. That's it. There's nothing else. I'm sure it was a good one. I don't know what happened in it, but I do know that this GSX-8R is ending as a giveaway bike, and I don't want you to miss it. So head over to yamanoob.co and become a member. It's a great way to support the show, and I'd love to see you on the Discord server. So don't miss out. Hit that link down below. But in the meantime, hit this link right over here and keep watching the next video. You're not going to regret it.